Let me take you back to the city of Bago in Myanmar in February 2021. This city bore witness to a chilling act of violence, an assault by the military that resulted in the deaths of over 80 people, many of them young activists. This marked the largest one-day death toll for a single city. This wasn't just an attack, it was a brutal reminder of the fear that had taken hold in the hearts of the citizens of Myanmar. But fear can also be a powerful motivator. This led to activists fleeing and joining guerrilla resistance groups, escalating the conflict. What started as a peaceful protest had turned into a fight for survival, a fight for democracy. From this moment, the violence in Myanmar escalated rapidly, becoming second only to the in Ukraine. The military has responded to opposition with brutal crackdowns, including political executions, burning villages, and even bombing hospitals and schools. Despite their brutality, the military's control over the country remains unstable, with experts estimating that they have a stable grip over only 17% of the country. However, the true horror of this situation does not lie solely in the struggle for power. The number of lives lost to political violence since the coup is staggering. The Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project estimates that around 27,683 people have died from political violence in Myanmar since the coup. Now imagine living in a place like this where the sun doesn't shine and where freedom is a mere dream. This is the grim reality of Myanmar, but the sun always rises after the darkest night, doesn't it? In the face of darkness, the spirit of democracy in Myanmar has refused to bow down. Here, resistance isn't just an act, it's a movement. The resistance in Myanmar isn't a sudden uprising, it's a response to a protracted struggle for democracy. When the military junta launched its brutal assault, ordinary citizens, young activists, and ethnic groups stood up to challenge the oppressive regime. They formed armed resistance groups, not as a choice but as a necessity, turning their towns and cities into fortresses of freedom. In this complex chessboard of conflict, the civilians, often under-equipped and under-trained, have managed to push back the military forces from their urban bastions. They have turned their vulnerability into strength, their fear into courage. While the military boasts of air power and heavy artillery, these resistance groups have their unwavering resolve and the spirit of democracy. Yet these brave hearts face formidable challenges. Access to weapons is limited, and the support from more powerful ethnic armed groups is often inconsistent. The chain of command within these resistance groups is still evolving, and seizing and holding onto territory remains a significant challenge. But these obstacles have not deterred them. They continue their guerrilla attacks, often at great personal risk, chipping away at the military's might, one attack at a time. Some ethnic armed groups have thrown their weight behind the pro-democracy movement, while others have been more cautious. The resistance has remained optimistic, viewing the military's increased reliance on air attacks as a sign of weakness. The resistance in Myanmar is a beacon of hope in a landscape of despair, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The spirit of resistance continues to burn bright, illuminating the path towards a democratic Myanmar. Their bravery echoes through the valleys and reverberates across the world. They are the unsung heroes, the guardians of democracy, and their story is far from over. Cornered and desperate, the junta is resorting to more lethal tactics. As the resistance intensifies, the military's response has been to increase its reliance on air power and heavy weaponry, a clear sign of the pressure they're under. The once ground-based conflict has taken to the skies as the military scrambles to regain control. This shift in tactics has seen the bombing of high-level targets, an escalation that is as ruthless as it is desperate. These aren't precision strikes aimed at military objectives. No, these are the acts of a cornered animal, lashing out without thought for the damage caused. The junta is using everything in its arsenal in a bid to quash the resistance, but each bomb dropped, each bullet fired, only fuels the resolve of those fighting for a free Myanmar. But here's the twist. The resistance sees this reliance on air attacks as a sign of the military's weakness. Why? Because resorting to such extreme measures suggests that the junta's grip on the ground is slipping. The military's stronghold is crumbling, their power waning. The more they resort to these desperate measures, the clearer it becomes that they are losing ground. But what does this mean for the people of Myanmar? Well, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, the escalating violence means more danger, more destruction, and sadly, more lives lost. On the other hand, it's a sign that the resistance is making headway, that the junta is feeling the pressure. The military's desperate measures are a clear indication of its losing ground. But what does this mean for Myanmar's future? Will the resistance be able to capitalize on the military's desperation and make a decisive push for freedom? Or will the junta find a way to regain control and continue its reign of terror? Only time will tell. But for now, the fight for freedom continues, and the world watches, holding its breath. When the world turns a blind eye, oppression thrives. The crisis in Myanmar is no different. This is the stark reality we are facing today. Despite the escalating violence and the military junta's brutal crackdowns, the international community's response has been, at best, tepid. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has been particularly criticized for its perceived lack of action. While it's seen as the key institution to address the crisis due to its regional legitimacy, many feel that it has failed to effectively engage with the National Unity Government, a body established in opposition to the military rule. Campaigners are now urging ASEAN to take stronger action, to demand an end to hostilities in Myanmar. They are calling for the exclusion of the military from ASEAN summits and working-level meetings, a move that could potentially isolate the junta and pressure them into negotiations. Looking forward, the chairmanship of ASEAN is set to pass from Cambodia to Indonesia, a country that has shown a willingness to engage with the National Unity Government. This transition could represent a significant shift in ASEAN's approach to the crisis and may pave the way for a more proactive stance. Meanwhile, the resistance groups in Myanmar are calling for international intervention. With the military increasingly resorting to air power and heavy weaponry, proposals such as a no-fly zone or an embargo on supplying aviation fuel to Myanmar have been put forward. These measures could significantly hinder the military's capacity to wage war, giving the resistance a fighting chance. But as we've seen, the international community's role is more than just about taking punitive measures against the junta. It's about supporting the pro-democracy movement, recognizing the National Unity Government, and helping to facilitate a peaceful resolution to the conflict. To put it simply, the international community is not just an observer in this crisis, it has the power to influence the course of events, for better or worse. The fate of Myanmar hangs in the balance, with the international community holding the scales. The question is, will it tip towards justice and democracy, or will it remain in the grip of oppression and violence? Only time will tell. The road to freedom is paved with challenges, but for Myanmar, it's a road worth taking. As we gaze into the foggy horizon of Myanmar's future, we see a nation standing at the crossroads of history. The potential outcomes of this struggle for democracy are as diverse as they are consequential. On one hand, there's the looming shadow of the military consolidating power ahead of the planned elections in 2023. This could usher in a new era of oppression, further stifling the voice of the people and prolonging the nation's suffering. Yet on the other hand, the resistance remains undeterred, their resolve unbroken. They face daunting obstacles, limited access to weaponry, the need to secure the support of more powerful ethnic armed groups, and the challenge of improving their chain of command. The road ahead is arduous, fraught with danger and uncertainty. Despite these hurdles, the resistance is imbued with a spirit of optimism. They see the military's increased reliance on air attacks as a sign of desperation, a clear indication that the junta is losing its grip on the country. This optimism fuels their courage, propelling them forward in the face of adversity. What's more, the resistance's success in driving the armed forces out of urban centers paints a promising picture. It suggests that the tide is turning, that the junta's days are numbered. In this high-stakes chess game of power, every move matters. The resistance's strategy may need to evolve, focusing more on guerrilla attacks rather than trying to seize and hold territory. This shift in tactics could prove crucial in their bid to reclaim their nation. The struggle for democracy in Myanmar is far from over, but as the junta loses ground, the dawn of a new day seems closer than ever. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Myanmar's struggle for democracy. If you want to stay updated on this situation and more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Together, let's keep the flame of awareness burning.